It's never easy living in someone else's shadow. The 1970s gave us creepy and atmospheric horror like Texas Chainsaw and Halloween, whereas the 80s opted for a shameless splatterfest wearing faces like Freddy Krueger's and battling baddies like the Deadites in Evil Dead. It made sense, therefore, for there to be high hopes for what the 90s would bring, but bloated sequels that served as nothing more than fan service for die-hard fans spelled a grisly end for the horror genre. However, as the decade came to a close, there was hope. In particular, horror legend Wes Craven burst back on the scene in 1996 with a little film called Scream. The world was introduced to the Woodsboro Killer, better known as Ghostface, who rose to the heights of the murderous maniacs that were gloriously referenced throughout the smash hit film. Despite his rise to fame, however, the mystery surrounding Ghostface goes far beyond the blood-splattered walls of the film, with many surprising aspects of the character being revealed in the years since its release. I am Tilly from What Culture, and here are 10 things you never knew about Ghostface. Number 10. His distinctive killing style. Ghostface's mannerisms, interestingly, stay the same throughout the 4 films, despite the different folks that don the mask. The charismatic and flirtatious personality that we were introduced to in the iconic opening scene with Drew Barrymore is consistent throughout all his incarnations, as well as his ritualistic way of killing. The empty stare of the mask, coupled with the almost mechanical repetitions, help add to the overall fear factor surrounding the slasher villain. Being a polite chap who doesn't want to leave too much of a mess after each horrendous act of violence, he always cleans his knife after each kill. The kills themselves are similar too, slashing the throat of his victims before eventually stabbing them. Even serial killers have weird habits, apparently. When the character was introduced to the horror game franchise Dead by Daylight, dubbed The Ghostface, his meta-knowledge of horror films and subsequent teasing of victims was kept in, as it was seen as so integral to the character. Number 9. Real-life horrors impacted the design. The original design of Ghostface was to be in all white, creating a far more ghostly image. This idea continued until late stages of production, until it was pointed out that the all-white appearance resembled a far more real evil. During the 90s, there was a huge resurgence in activity from the hate group, the Ku Klux Klan, as well as neo-Nazis. The former were instantly recognisable by their characteristic hooded white robes, which, unfortunately, were strikingly similar to Ghostface's original appearance. The costume was then changed to the signature black robe that all incarnations of the masked killer is now known for wearing, and has since covered Halloween costume aisles in supermarkets since the film was released. Win-win, really. Number 8. The cast never met Ghostface on set. Neither Skeet Ulrich, who played teenage psycho number 1 Billy Loomis, or Matthew Lillard, peer-pressured maniac companion Stu Matcher, actually voiced Ghostface. Right down to the grunts and groans of pain, the full credit goes to voice actor Roger L. Jackson. The actor was initially going to merely create temporary sounds to be dubbed over in post-production, but Craven liked how his voice sounded evil and intelligent, according to the Scream trivia page on IMDb. The cast never even actually met him, as Wes Craven didn't want the actors to put the name to the face, thus maintaining an air of menace. To take it even further, Wes Craven himself even put on the costume in some scenes, so that there was even more mystery surrounding the character. Number 7. Peanuts and serial killers? Whilst edited to avoid copyright, the mask itself was based off the mask released by Funworld employee Bridget Sleaton in the early 90s. Scream's producer saw the mask, known as the Peanut-Eyed Ghost, and brought it to Craven. Craven was smitten when he saw it, and after getting the blessing of Funworld owners, Stanley and Alan Geller, began Ghostface creation. After advice from the Funworld licensing director RJ Torbett, who suggested the mask looked like it was deeply pained, it took on a far grimmer appearance. The features were stretched and contorted to create something right out of a nightmare, and a mask so recognisable it would be on a par with even Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees' vile visages. Torbett himself went on to nickname the mask Ghostface. Number 6. Influences on the design. Looking at the final design of the mask, it bears obvious resemblance to Edvard Munch's painting The Scream from 1893. Inspiration was also grabbed from the cover of Pink Floyd's The Wall film, which was designed by British cartoonist Gerald Scaife. Both The Scream and The Wall feature key ideas of fear, agony, brutality, and lust. This ties in perfectly with the themes of the film, as many remarks are made on the corruption running rampant within young people during the time Scream was set. Munch took inspiration from both his mother's illness, as well as an entry from his journal in January 1892, detailing a blood-red sky that seemed to say nature was screaming. Gerald Scaife created the idea of the huge, screaming face on the cover of the Bob Geldof starring The Wall film by twisting people into a caricature of their emotions, highlighting the most evil parts of their nature. Pretty accurate for the movie, if you ask me. Number 5. Casting was quite a contortion. Not just Drew Barrymore didn't quite follow the original casting plan, as she was set to play Sidney Prescott before changing her mind. The casting of Ghostface in the first Scream was far from easy. Billy Loomis in particular went through several changes, with actors such as Joaquin Phoenix turning the role down. David Arquette was initially cast as Loomis, but changed his mind to play police officer Dewey. The rather goofy Dewey was meant to be a sexy hero type in early stages of production, which is just bizarre to think about now. Arquette admitted to switching roles for this reason on the Craven-centred episode of the Director's documentary in 1999. Matthew Lillard, however, managed to bag the role on sheer charm alone. After being spotted by the casting director, he was invited to audition. Craven was bowled over by the manic energy he brought, and so was granted the role of Stu Matcher. Number 4. Matthew Lillard. Speaking of Lillard, he has a whole section dedicated to him because of how brilliant he was in the first film. Not only did he and Neve Campbell date, but they were together for 2 years after meeting on set. But despite the praise for his performance, he went on to say he hated his role in Scream upon watching it, laughing that he had a tiny head and was all gums and big teeth. However, he has since stated interest in returning for the Scream 5 sequel coming up in 2021, so it can't have been that bad. Lillard's brilliant improvisation was part of what made his performance so fantastic, coming up with endlessly quotable lines on the fly, including the hilarious, "My mom and dad are gonna be so mad at me." Number 3. Ghostface is based off a real-life murderer. In 1990, the Gainesville Ripper, identified as Danny Rolling upon his arrest, murdered 1 university student in Santa Fe and 4 in the University of Florida, much in the same way Ghostface targets high school students. Coincidence? I think not. Screenplay writer Kevin Williamson was watching a documentary on the murders and told CNN in 1998 about the experience. He said, "I was watching this Barbara Walters special on the Gainesville murders and I was getting so spooked. I was being scared out of my mind. During the commercial break, I heard a noise and I had to go and search the house. And I went into the living room and a window was open. And I'd been in this house for 2 days. I'd never noticed the window open, so I got really scared. So I went to the kitchen, got a butcher knife, got the mobile phone. I went to bed that night so spooked I was having nightmares. And I woke up at like 3 or 4 in the morning and I started writing the opening scene." This went on to become one of the most defining moments of the whole Scream franchise, so thank you, Gainesville Ripper, I guess? Number 2. Ghostface isn't named until Scream 4, technically. Despite being known as Ghostface when the films are discussed, the character isn't named as such until Scream 4, known only as the Killer, the Woodsboro Murderer, Father Death, or credited only as the Voice in the first Scream. The name was of course adopted from the confrontation between Rose McGowan's feisty Tatum Riley, taunting the character and sarcastically begging, "Please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface, I want to be in the sequel." You'd think she'd be able to do just that after naming the iconic baddie, but alas, a garage door and a doggy flap just had to get in the way. Life really isn't fair, is it? Number 1. Kill count. Despite having a franchise of 4 films, plus that upcoming sequel, Ghostface has a relatively low number of kills. The homages to cinema slasher giants during the films, like Michael Myers, who is given particular love in the first Scream, end at just homages, unfortunately. The kill count of Ghostface doesn't match those legends. Over the 4 films, Ghostface totals 46 slayings. Granted, the number of kills increases with each sequel, but it isn't that impressive. To put that into horror context, Jason Voorhees has killed around 146 people by contrast. Ghostface does have one victory, however, as the Woodsboro Killer has about 10 more kills than the nightmarish legend Freddy Krueger, but I'm not really sure if that's something to be proud of or not. And that's our list. Know of any other spine-chilling facts about Ghostface that most people don't know? Share your thoughts and facts in the comments below. I've been Tilly Owen, Tislowen over on social media, and this has been What Culture. If you liked the video and want to see more fantastic film content, please like, share and subscribe and drop by again. Look after yourself and each other, and thanks for watching.